The notes of the lullaby floated through the warm summer air, carrying with them a father's love and the weight of his struggles. Parker Richards had never imagined his life would turn out this way. 32. Single father to a 4-year-old daughter, working 3 jobs, and singing on the rooftop of his modest apartment building because it was the only place he could find peace after Lily fell asleep. "Sleep tight, little star," he whispered to himself, the words of the lullaby still echoing in his mind even though he'd stopped singing minutes ago. The city lights spread before him like a carpet of diamonds, so beautiful yet so distant from his reality. Up here, with the gentle breeze ruffling his dark hair, Parker could pretend that tomorrow wouldn't bring another day of financial worries and exhaustion. He hadn't noticed the figure standing on the balcony of the luxury high-rise that loomed over his building. Hadn't realized that for the past week, someone had been listening. Brielle Foster stood motionless, her fingers wrapped around a glass of expensive wine she'd forgotten to drink. The CEO of Foster Innovations hadn't expected to find solace in a stranger's voice when she'd stepped out for some air after another 14-hour workday. Yet here she was, night after night, drawn to her balcony by the mysterious lullabies that seemed to speak directly to the emptiness she'd never acknowledged inside herself. "Who are you?" she whispered, though the distance between them swallowed her words. At 34, Brielle had conquered the business world, turned her father's struggling tech company into a billion-dollar enterprise, and made Forbes' 30 under 40 list. Yet she'd never heard anything as authentic as this man's simple songs for a child she couldn't see. The next morning arrived with the relentless persistence that Parker had come to expect. His alarm blared at 5 a.m., and he silenced it quickly, not wanting to wake Lily. The small 2-bedroom apartment was quiet as he padded to the kitchen, starting coffee before heading to the shower. Every minute of his day was scheduled, orchestrated to maximize his time between jobs and fatherhood. By 5:45, he was dressed in his maintenance uniform, gently waking Lily for daycare. Her sleepy eyes opened, and she reached for him with the trust that still humbled him every day. "Good morning, princess," he said softly, brushing her chestnut curls from her forehead. "Time to get ready for Miss Alina's." "I was dreaming about Mommy," Lily said, her voice still thick with sleep. "She was pushing me on a swing." Parker's heart constricted, but he kept his smile steady. "That sounds like a beautiful dream, sweetheart. Mommy loved pushing you on swings." 3 years had passed since Amanda's car accident, but Lily still remembered fragments of her mother. Parker was grateful for that, even if each mention reopened wounds that never truly healed. Across town, in a penthouse that occupied the entire top floor of the Foster Tower, Brielle was already reviewing quarterly reports. She'd been awake since 4:30 a.m., her mind racing with strategies and projections. Sleep had never come easily to her, but lately, it was the lullabies that disturbed her rest, not with their sound, but with the questions they raised. Her assistant, Marcus, entered with her usual morning green smoothie and a stack of documents requiring her signature. "The board meeting is at 10, and you have lunch with the Japanese investors at noon," he reminded her, efficiently arranging her day as he had for the past 5 years. "Thank you, Marcus." She took the smoothie without looking up from her computer screen. "Has legal finished reviewing the Thompson contract? On your desk, highlighted sections need your attention." He paused, studying her with a slight frown. "If you don't mind me saying, you look tired, Miss Foster. Perhaps you should consider taking a weekend off." The Hampton house has been empty for months. Brielle finally looked up, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Marcus. The Peterson merger is too important for distractions right now." He nodded and retreated, knowing better than to push. Brielle returned to her reports, but her mind drifted to the voice from last night, rich, slightly raspy, and filled with an emotion she rarely encountered in her world of polished presentations and calculated negotiations. Parker dropped Lily off at Alina Diaz's in-home daycare by 6:30 a.m., kissing his daughter goodbye and promising to pick her up by 5 p.m. Alina, a grandmother of 5 who had been caring for neighborhood children for 20 years, gave him a warm smile. She had breakfast. Alina asked in her accented English. "Just some toast and fruit," Parker replied. "I packed her lunch in the dinosaur bag. She's been on a stegosaurus kick this week." Alina nodded knowingly. "Last week was Triceratops. I keep up." She patted his arm. "You look tired, Parker, working too much." He shrugged with a self-deprecating smile. "Bills don't pay themselves, Alina, and Lily deserves the best I can give her." "You are a good father," she said firmly, "but good fathers need rest too." Parker thanked her and hurried to his first job as a maintenance worker at Westside Apartments, a mid-range complex where he handled everything from leaky faucets to faulty wiring. The building manager, Frank, greeted him with a clipboard of complaints. 3 backed-up toilets, a broken dishwasher in 4B, and Mrs. Halloran's ceiling fan is making that noise again, Frank said without preamble. "On it," Parker replied, taking the clipboard and heading to the supply room. The work was steady, physical, and paid just enough to cover rent and utilities. His afternoon job at the hardware store contributed to groceries and daycare, while his evening bartending shifts at the Blue Note went into Lily's college fund, and the ever-present medical bills left from Amanda's final days. The day progressed in its usual blur of activity. At the hardware store, Parker advised homeowners on plumbing issues, mixed paint, and restocked shelves. His manager, Dave, caught him yawning around 3 p.m. "Late night?" Dave asked, helping Parker unload a delivery of power tools. "No later than usual, just didn't sleep well." Dave nodded sympathetically. "How's the little one?" "Growing too fast," Parker said, his expression softening as it always did when he spoke of Lily. "She informed me yesterday that she's going to be an astronaut paleontologist so she can find dinosaur bones on Mars." "Dream big or go home, right?" Dave laughed. "Listen, I know you're not looking for charity, but my sister-in-law works HR at Foster Innovations. They're hiring for maintenance staff, better pay, benefits, and it's one steady job instead of juggling 3. Want me to put in a word?" Parker hesitated. He'd been down this road before, well-meaning friends trying to help, interviews that went nowhere because his resume showed a jack of all trades rather than specialized skills. But benefits would mean better health care for Lily. "That would be great, Dave. Thanks." At 4:45 p.m., Parker clocked out and rushed to pick up Lily, arriving just as she was finishing a drawing of what appeared to be a purple Tyrannosaurus wearing a space helmet. "Daddy," she called, running to him with her artwork fluttering in her hand. "Look what I made." "It's a space dinosaur like me." Parker scooped her up, breathing in the scent of crayons and the strawberry shampoo Alina used. "It's amazing, Princess. The best space dinosaur I've ever seen." They walked the 6 blocks home, Lily chattering about her day, her small hand warm in his. Parker listened attentively, asking questions and marveling at the uncomplicated joy his daughter found in life's small details. At home, he prepared a simple dinner of pasta and vegetables while Lily colored at the kitchen table. "Daddy, can we have ice cream tonight?" she asked, looking up from her coloring book with hopeful eyes. Parker checked the freezer, finding it empty except for frozen peas and ice cubes. "Not tonight, sweetheart. But how about I make us some chocolate milk for dessert?" Lily considered this compromise seriously before nodding. "Okay, but with extra chocolate?" "Extra chocolate it is," he agreed, relieved the negotiation had gone smoothly. The end of the month was always tight, with paychecks stretched to their limits. After dinner, bath time, and 2 bedtime stories, Lily had successfully bargained for the second. Parker tucked his daughter into bed. The ritual never varied. He sat beside her, stroked her hair, and sang the lullaby his own mother had sung to him, the one that had become his rooftop solace after Lily fell asleep. "Moonlight, starlight, soft and bright, watch over my little one tonight. Angels gather, dreams take flight, until the morning brings its light." Lily's eyes grew heavy, her breathing deepened, and Parker continued singing softly until he was certain she was asleep. He kissed her forehead, adjusted her nightlight, and quietly left the room, leaving the door ajar. Instead of heading to his third job at the Blue Note, Parker checked his phone to find a text from Jake, the bar manager. "Slow night, covered by Ryan. Take the night off, man." The unexpected free time felt strange, almost uncomfortable. Parker moved around the apartment, picking up toys and folding laundry, before finding himself drawn to the roof access door at the end of the hallway. The night was clear, slightly cooler than the previous evening, but still pleasantly warm for early June. On the rooftop, the city seemed both closer and further away. Parker sat on the weathered bench someone had dragged up years ago, leaned his head back, and closed his eyes. The weight of constant motion, of never having quite enough, pressed down on him. He loved his life with Lily, would never trade it for anything, but sometimes the relentlessness of responsibility left him gasping for air. Without conscious thought, he began to sing again, the lullaby flowing into a song Amanda had loved, then into something without words, just pure emotion given voice. In her penthouse, Brielle had just kicked off her heels and poured herself a glass of wine when she heard the voice that had been haunting her thoughts all day. She moved to her balcony without hesitation, the board presentations and contract negotiations forgotten. The voice was stronger tonight, more varied. Not just lullabies, but something raw and unfiltered. She could see him now in the moonlight, broad-shouldered, head tipped back, completely unaware of his audience. Brielle stood transfixed, something inside her responding to the naked emotion in this stranger's voice. In her world of carefully crafted images and strategic relationships, such unguarded expression was foreign, almost shocking in its honesty. When the singing stopped, she felt bereft, as if something precious had been taken from her. She watched as the man stood, stretched, and disappeared back into the stairwell of the modest apartment building. The next morning brought an unexpected crisis at Foster Innovations, a security breach in their new banking software, just weeks before launch. Brielle spent hours in emergency meetings, coordinating with her cybersecurity team and drafting statements for nervous investors. "We need to delay the launch," her CTO, Raymond, insisted. "At least until we've patched the vulnerability and had independent verification." "Delaying means losing market position," argued Martin from marketing. "Our competitors will swoop in." Brielle listened to the debate around the conference table, her mind processing options and consequences with practiced efficiency. "We delay," she finally decided. 2 weeks maximum. Raymond, I want round-the-clock work on the patch. Martin, prepare a statement positioning this as a proactive security enhancement, not a reaction to a breach. Nothing alarming, nothing that admits vulnerability. The meeting dispersed, but the day continued in crisis mode. By evening, Brielle's head throbbed with tension, her normally perfect posture showing signs of fatigue. As she reviewed security reports in her office, Marcus appeared with a paper bag emitting delicious aromas. "You missed lunch and dinner," he said, placing the bag on her desk. "From that Thai place you like." Brielle offered a grateful smile. "You're too good to me, Marcus." "Someone has to be," he replied with the frankness that made him invaluable. "The security team has things under control. You should go home, eat this properly, and get some actual sleep." She started to protest, but recognized the wisdom in his words. The crisis wouldn't be resolved tonight, and clear-headed leadership would be needed tomorrow. "You're right, thank you." At home, Brielle ate at her kitchen counter, scrolling through emails on her tablet. The food was excellent but barely registered, as she mentally composed responses to concerned board members. Only when she'd finished and found herself on her balcony, wineglass in hand, did she realize she'd been listening for the voice. But the night remained silent. Disappointment settled over her, surprisingly sharp. She'd never even seen the man's face clearly, yet his absence felt significant. Brielle shook her head at her own foolishness. She was a Forbes-listed CEO, not a teenager mooning over a voice in the night. Yet she stayed on the balcony longer than usual, hoping. Parker hadn't gone to the roof because the Blue Note had been busy, requiring all hands on deck. He'd returned home after midnight to find Mrs. Patel, his elderly neighbor who occasionally watched Lily, dozing on his couch. She was Angel, Mrs. Patel assured him as he thanked her and walked her back to her apartment. Slept whole time. No trouble. Now, at his maintenance job, Parker was replacing light fixtures in the lobby when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Dave from the hardware store. "Hey, man," Dave said when Parker answered. "Good news, my sister-in-law wants you to come in for an interview at Foster, tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. if you can make it." Parker's heart raced with hope and anxiety. "That's fantastic, Dave. Thank you. I'll need to swap shifts at the store, but already handled. Told Miguel you had an important interview and he's covering for you. Go get that job, buddy." The next day, Parker dressed in his only suit slightly outdated but well-maintained and dropped Lily at daycare with an extra tight hug. "Why are you wearing your special clothes, Daddy?" she asked, eyeing his tie with curiosity. "I'm going to talk to some people about a new job," he explained. "One that might let me spend more time with you." Her eyes widened with delight. "Really? Can I come too?" He laughed and kissed her forehead. "Not this time, princess. But if I get this job, we'll celebrate with ice cream. Deal?" "Deal," she agreed enthusiastically. Foster Innovations occupied a gleaming tower in the financial district. Its lobby a monument to modern design with soaring ceilings, living walls of plants, and sleek security stations. Parker felt out of place immediately, but straightened his shoulders and approached the reception desk with practiced confidence. "Parker Richards for Human Resources. I have an interview at 2:00 p.m. The receptionist directed him to the 30th floor, where he was met by a friendly woman named Sophia, who introduced herself as Dave's sister-in-law. "Dave speaks very highly of you," she said, leading him to a small conference room. "We're looking for someone with diverse maintenance skills and a problem-solving mindset. From what I understand, you're exactly that." The interview went better than Parker had expected. His experience across different maintenance fields turned out to be an advantage rather than a liability, and his ability to handle multiple responsibilities simultaneously impressed the facility's manager, a no-nonsense woman named Janet. "We need someone who can think on their feet," Janet said. "Things break around here in creative ways, especially in the R&D labs. How comfortable are you with technology?" "I'm a quick learner," Parker replied honestly. "I might not know every system immediately, but give me the manual and a little time, and I'll figure it out." Janet nodded approvingly. "That's the attitude we need. The pay is $28 per hour, full benefits after 60 days, including health care, 401k, matching, and 2 weeks paid vacation to start. Standard hours are 7:00 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, with occasional overtime as needed. How does that sound?" Parker maintained his professional demeanor while his mind raced with calculations. This was nearly double his current combined income, with regular hours that would mean more time with Lily, plus benefits that would ease the constant worry about healthcare costs. "That sounds excellent," he said, his voice steady despite the hope swelling in his chest. "Great. There's just one more person who wants to meet you, unusual for this position, but she likes to have a hand in all hiring decisions. If you'll follow me." Janet led him to an elevator that required a keycard, taking them to the top floor. Parker's nerves returned as they walked through an executive suite area, past curious glances from well-dressed professionals. They stopped at a large office with glass walls and a breathtaking view of the city. "Miss Foster will see you now," Janet said, gesturing for him to enter. Parker stepped into the office, where a woman stood looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows, her back to him. She turned at his entrance, and Parker felt a jolt of recognition even though he was certain they'd never met. Something about her seemed familiar, the way she held herself, perhaps, or the intelligent assessment in her eyes. "Mr. Richards," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Brielle Foster, CEO of Foster Innovations. Please have a seat." Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct but not unkind. Parker sat across from her desk, maintaining eye contact despite the intimidating surroundings. "I understand you're interested in joining our maintenance team," Brielle began, sitting down and opening a folder that presumably contained his application. "Your experience is diverse." "I believe that's an advantage," Parker replied. "I've worked in various settings and with different systems, which has given me a broad knowledge base and the ability to adapt quickly." Brielle nodded, studying him with an intensity that made him wonder if he had something on his face. "Tell me about yourself, Mr. Richards. Beyond the resume." The question was standard interview fare, but something in her tone suggested she wanted more than the rehearsed answer. Parker took a breath, deciding on honesty. "I'm a single father to a 4-year-old daughter. My wife passed away 3 years ago, and since then, I've been working multiple jobs to provide for us. I'm looking for stability, benefits for my daughter, and hopefully a better work-life balance." He paused, then added, "I take pride in solving problems efficiently and leaving things better than I found them, whether that's a broken HVAC system or how I approach life in general." Something flickered across Brielle's expression, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "Your daughter, what's her name?" "Lily," Parker answered, a smile softening his features automatically. "She's the center of my world." Brielle seemed to make a decision, closing his folder and leaning forward slightly. "Mr. Richards, Janet has already determined you're qualified for this position. My approval is merely a formality, which I'm happy to give. However, I have a somewhat unusual question for you." Parker nodded, curious. "Go ahead." "Do you sing?" The question caught him completely off guard. Yes, sometimes, lullabies to my daughter mostly. Why do you ask?" Brielle stood, gesturing for him to follow her to the windows. She pointed to a smaller building about a block away. "Do you live there? The Parkview Apartments?" Understanding dawned on Parker as he followed her gaze to his building and specifically to the rooftop where he spent his evenings. "Yes, I do. 4th floor." He looked at her more carefully now, noting the luxury high-rise directly visible from his rooftop. "Have you heard me singing?" "For the past 2 weeks," Brielle confirmed, a hint of color touching her cheeks. "Your voice carries remarkably well." "Especially the lullabies." Parker felt heat rise to his face. "I'm sorry if I've been disturbing you. I didn't realize anyone could hear." "Don't apologize," she said quickly. "It's been lovely, actually, quite unexpected, but lovely." She turned from the window, businesslike once more. "The job is yours if you want it, Mr. Richards. Janet will handle the paperwork and details." "Thank you, Miss Foster. I appreciate the opportunity." Parker hesitated, then added, "And I'll try to keep the volume down on the rooftop serenades." A smile touched her lips, the first real one he'd seen. "Please don't. Good day, Mr. Richards." As Parker left the building, paperwork completed, and a start date set for the following Monday, he felt lightheaded with relief and possibility. His first stop was the ice cream shop near Alina's daycare, where he waited impatiently to pick up Lily and share the good news. When she came running to him, he swung her into his arms. "Guess what, princess? Daddy got the new job. Ice cream time," she cheered, throwing her arms around his neck. Over rainbow sherbet for Lily and chocolate fudge for Parker, he explained in simple terms what would change. "Daddy will only have 1 job now, not 3, and I'll be home for dinner every night." Lily's eyes widened. "Every night, even Fridays." "Even Fridays," he confirmed, his heart full at her excitement over something so simple yet so significant. That night, after Lily was asleep, Parker went to the roof with a strange mixture of self-consciousness and curiosity. Would Brielle Foster be listening? The thought made him nervous in a way he hadn't felt in years, not since he'd first asked Amanda to dance at a mutual friend's wedding. Still, he sat on his bench and began to sing. First the familiar lullaby, and then other songs he loved, folk tunes his father had taught him, classic rock ballads, even a few originals he'd written during late nights when sleep eluded him. On her balcony, Brielle listened, a smile playing at her lips. Now she had a face to match the voice's strong features, kind eyes that crinkled when he talked about his daughter, and a quiet dignity despite circumstances that would have broken many. She wondered if he was singing for her tonight, knowing she was listening. The thought sent an unexpected thrill through her. Brielle Foster didn't do thrills, she did strategic planning, calculated risks, and measurable outcomes. Yet here she was, standing in the night air, captivated by a maintenance man's voice. The weekend passed quickly for Parker, filled with preparing for his new job and spending quality time with Lily. They visited the park, baked cookies, and watched animated movies together, simple pleasures made sweeter by the knowledge that soon, such moments wouldn't be crammed between shifts. Monday morning arrived with both excitement and nervousness. Parker dressed in the uniform provided by Foster Innovations navy work pants and a gray polo with the company logo, and took extra care with his appearance. Lily noticed immediately. "You look handsome, Daddy," she said as he prepared her breakfast. "Like a prince," he laughed, tousling her hair. "I don't think maintenance men qualify as princes, sweetheart." "They do if they're you," she replied with the absolute certainty only a 4-year-old could muster. His first day at Foster Innovations was busy but exhilarating. Janet gave him a thorough tour of the facilities, introduced him to the other maintenance staff, and started him on relatively simple tasks to learn the building systems. By lunchtime, Parker had already fixed 3 minor issues and begun familiarizing himself with the building's complex HVAC controls. He was repairing a conference room projector when the door opened, and Brielle Foster entered with several executives in tow. She paused briefly when she saw him, an unreadable expression crossing her face. "Mr. Richards," she acknowledged with a professional nod. "Is there a problem with the equipment?" "Just a loose connection and a bulb that needs replacing," he replied, equally professional. "It'll be ready in about 10 minutes, Miss Foster." "Excellent, thank you." She turned to her colleagues. "Let's get coffee while we wait." The group left, but not before Brielle glanced back at him, a hint of something personal breaking through her business facade. Parker found himself thinking about that look throughout the afternoon, as he worked his way through the day's maintenance requests. The pattern continued for the next 2 weeks, occasional brief encounters with Brielle in hallways or meeting rooms, always professional, but with an undercurrent of awareness that made Parker's heart beat faster. At night, he still went to the roof to sing, and though he couldn't see her clearly, he sensed her presence on the balcony across the way. Then came the night of the summer storm. Parker had put Lily to bed earlier than usual after a day at the zoo had exhausted her. Thunder rumbled in the distance as he checked the weather app on his phone, a significant storm system moving in, with potential for heavy rain and lightning. He debated whether to go to the roof at all, but something pulled him there despite the approaching weather. The air was charged with electricity, the city lights blurred by the first drops of rain. Parker sat on his bench, looking toward Brielle's balcony, wondering if she'd risk the weather to listen tonight. The rain began to fall more heavily, but still he sat, sheltered slightly by the small overhang near the stairwell door. He sang softly, his voice mingling with the patter of raindrops and distant thunder. On her balcony, protected by the deeper overhang of her penthouse, Brielle stood mesmerized. There was something magical about his voice against the backdrop of the storm, raw, elemental, completely authentic. She'd spent the past 2 weeks trying to understand her fascination with this man, telling herself it was merely appreciation for his musical talent, but it was more than that. The glimpses she'd caught of him at work revealed someone who approached each task with care and competence, who treated everyone from custodial staff to executives with equal respect, whose face lit up whenever he mentioned his daughter. In a world where Brielle had learned to be wary of hidden agendas and calculated charm, Parker Richards seemed refreshingly genuine. A particularly loud crack of thunder made her jump, and the rain intensified suddenly, driven sideways by gusting wind. Through the curtain of water, she could see Parker standing, preparing to retreat inside. Without conscious decision, Brielle grabbed her phone and called down to security. 20 minutes later, Parker opened his apartment door to find a security guard from Foster Tower standing there. "Mr. Richards, Miss Foster asks if you would join her. I'm to escort you if you're willing." The guard, professional but clearly curious, gestured toward a black umbrella and the luxury building across the way. Parker hesitated, glancing back at Lily's bedroom door. "My daughter is asleep." "I can't leave her." The guard nodded understandingly. "Miss Foster anticipated that concern. She said to tell you that she's happy to come to you instead, if you're comfortable with that." The idea of Brielle Foster in his modest apartment was both alarming and strangely appealing. After a moment's consideration, Parker made a decision. "Please tell Miss Foster she's welcome to come over, but to be aware that it's nothing fancy." The guard departed with the message, and Parker spent the next 15 minutes in a flurry of straightening up, gathering scattered toys, quickly wiping down counters, and wondering what on earth had possessed Brielle Foster to seek him out tonight. The soft knock at his door came sooner than expected. Parker took a deep breath and opened it to find Brielle standing there in casual clothes, dark jeans, and a simple blue blouse looking simultaneously out of place and perfectly at ease. "Mr. Richards," she said, a small smile playing at her lips. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all, Miss Foster. Please come in." He stepped back to let her enter, acutely aware of the contrast between her penthouse and his apartment. "And please call me Parker." "Only if you'll call me Brielle," she replied, stepping inside and glancing around with interest rather than judgment. "Thank you for seeing me so unexpectedly." "I admit I'm curious about what brings you here," Parker said, gesturing for her to sit on the couch while he took the adjacent armchair. "Can I offer you something to drink? Water, tea, coffee? Tea would be lovely, thank you." As Parker moved to the kitchen, Brielle continued, "I suppose I should explain my impromptu visit. The truth is, I've been listening to you sing for nearly a month now, and I felt it was time we had a proper conversation." Parker returned with 2 mugs of tea, handing one to her before sitting down again. "About my singing?" "Partly," she acknowledged, "but also because I find myself intrigued by you." A hint of vulnerability showed through her confident exterior. "I don't normally do this seeking out personal connections with employees. It's probably crossing several HR guidelines." Parker smiled, feeling oddly at ease despite the surreal nature of having the CEO of Foster Innovations sitting on his second-hand couch. "Well, technically you're not seeking me out at work. This is neutral territory." "Is it?" Brielle's gaze was direct. "This is your home where your daughter sleeps. That seems deeply personal territory." "True," he conceded, "but I invited you in." He studied her for a moment. "Why did you want to talk to me, Brielle? Really?" She looked down at her tea, then back at him with startling honesty. "Because your voice made me feel something I haven't felt in a very long time. Something real. And when I met you, when I saw how you talk about your daughter, how you approach your work, it made me curious about the man behind the voice." A soft sound from down the hall interrupted them, Lily calling out in her sleep. Parker excused himself to check on her, returning a few minutes later. "Just a dream," he explained. "She's still asleep." Brielle nodded, her expression softening. "Tell me about her, about being a father." The request seemed genuine, and Parker found himself talking about Lily, her dinosaur obsession, her artistic tendencies, her uncanny ability to negotiate extra bedtime stories. From there, the conversation flowed naturally to his late wife, his journey as a single parent, and eventually to his music. "I used to play in a band before Lily was born," he admitted. "Nothing famous, just local venues. The rooftop singing started after Amanda died. It was the only way I could express everything, and it helped me feel connected to Amanda somehow. You don't have to stop singing to her, Brielle said softly. I didn't mean to intrude on something so personal. You didn't intrude, Parker assured her. In a strange way, having an audience again, even an unseen one, has been good for me. Your turn now, tell me about being a CEO. Brielle laughed lightly. Far less interesting than raising a child, I assure you. I doubt that, Parker countered. You run a company that's changing how people interact with technology. That's pretty significant. Something in his genuine interest prompted Brielle to open up about the challenges and rewards of her position, the responsibility she felt toward her employees, and eventually, the loneliness that sometimes accompanied success. I have people around me constantly, she explained, but very few who see me as anything other than the CEO or a business connection. It's partly my own doing. I've prioritized career over personal relationships, but sometimes I wonder what I'm missing. The conversation continued for hours, flowing easily between serious topics and lighter moments, discovering unexpected common ground despite their different life circumstances. When Brielle finally glanced at her watch, she was shocked to see it was after midnight. I should go, she said, setting down her long, empty mug. You have work tomorrow, we both do. Parker walked her to the door, a comfortable silence falling between them. This was nice, he said finally. Unexpected, but nice. It was, Brielle agreed, hesitating before adding, perhaps we could do it again sometime, maybe with Lily awake to properly meet me. The suggestion surprised and pleased him. She'd like that, so would I. Brielle smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression that transformed her face. Good night, Parker. Thank you for the tea and conversation. Good night, Brielle. Thank you for listening to all of it. After she left, Parker stood at his window, watching the storm that had now reduced to a gentle rain. Something had shifted tonight, something significant but still fragile. He wasn't sure where it might lead, but for the first time in 3 years, he felt a flutter of possibility that had nothing to do with financial stability or career advancement. The next week brought a new rhythm to their lives. During working hours, Brielle and Parker maintained professional distance, acknowledging each other with polite nods when their paths crossed at Foster Innovations. But in the evenings, after Parker had put Lily to bed, they would sometimes meet on his rooftop or her balcony, talking across the distance that separated their buildings. On Friday evening, Parker answered his door to find Brielle holding a large pizza box. I thought maybe Lily might like to meet me officially, she explained, a hint of nervousness in her voice. And what child doesn't like pizza? Parker grinned, stepping back to let her in. You've clearly done your research. Pizza is practically a food group in this household. Lily, who had been coloring at the coffee table, looked up curiously as Brielle entered. Parker made the introductions, keeping it simple. Lily, this is my friend Brielle. She brought us pizza for dinner. Lily studied Brielle with the frank assessment only children can get away with. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Parker felt heat rise to his face. Lily, no, it's okay, Brielle said, kneeling down to Lily's level. I'm just your dad's friend right now. Is it okay if I join you for pizza? Lily considered this seriously before nodding. Do you like dinosaurs? I don't know very much about them, Brielle admitted, but I'd love to learn. This was apparently the perfect answer, as Lily immediately launched into a detailed explanation of her favorite prehistoric creatures while Parker set the table. Dinner progressed with surprising ease, Lily warming to Brielle's genuine interest in her dinosaur knowledge and stories from daycare. After they'd eaten, Lily insisted on showing Brielle her room, proudly pointing out her collection of dinosaur figures and the solar system mobile hanging from her ceiling. Daddy made that for me, she explained, because I'm going to be an astronaut and find space dinosaurs. That sounds like an excellent career plan, Brielle said seriously. You'll need to study science and maybe learn how to fly rockets. Lily nodded solemnly. And dig for bones. Daddy says I can do anything if I work hard. Your daddy is very wise, Brielle replied, catching Parker's eye over Lily's head with a warm smile. When bedtime arrived, Lily surprised them both by asking Brielle to stay for her story. Parker read while both listened, Lily tucked against his side and Brielle sitting at the foot of the bed. When the story ended, Lily looked expectantly at her father. "Sing my song, Daddy." Parker began the familiar lullaby, his rich voice filling the small bedroom. Halfway through, he noticed Brielle watching him with an expression so tender, it made his voice falter momentarily before he recovered and finished the song. After Lily had fallen asleep, and they'd tiptoed out of her room, an awkward but not unpleasant silence fell between them. "You're wonderful with her," Brielle said finally. "She's lucky to have you." "I'm the lucky one," Parker replied, leading her to the living room. "She makes everything worthwhile." He paused, then added, "Thank you for tonight, for the pizza, and for being so good with Lily." "I enjoyed it more than any dinner I've had in years," Brielle admitted. "She's amazing, Parker, so bright and curious." They sat on the couch, closer than they had during their previous conversation. Parker was acutely aware of the narrowing space between them, both physically and emotionally. "Can I ask you something?" he said after a moment. "Why me? You could be spending your evenings with successful executives or interesting celebrities. Instead, you're eating pizza with a maintenance man and his 4-year-old daughter." Brielle considered his question seriously. "Because none of those executives or celebrities made me stop and listen the way your voice did. Because when I talk to you, I don't feel like I need to be Brielle Foster, CEO. I can just be Brielle. And because your daughter asked if I like dinosaurs instead of what my company's stock price is doing." Her honesty touched something deep inside Parker. "I like just Brielle very much," he said softly. "I like just Parker too," she replied, her gaze dropping briefly to his lips before returning to his eyes. Enough to wonder where this might be going. The question hung between them, filled with potential and uncertainty. Parker took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "I haven't been interested in anyone since Amanda died. Didn't have the time or emotional energy for it, but with you." He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "With you, I find myself thinking about possibilities again. The question is whether those possibilities make sense, given our very different lives." "Do they have to make sense right away?" Brielle asked, leaning slightly into his touch. "Can't we just see where it goes?" Parker smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing. "I'd like that." The moment stretched between them, charged with attraction and newfound understanding. When Brielle finally stood to leave, it was with reluctance. "I have a charity gala tomorrow evening," she said at the door. "Would you consider being my +1? It's perfectly fine to say no. I know finding childcare might be difficult on short notice." Parker was surprised by the invitation, but found himself wanting to accept. "Let me see if Mrs. Patel is available. If she can watch Lily, I'd be honored to accompany you." Brielle smiled, an unexpected shyness in her expression. "I'll text you the details. Good night, Parker." "Good night, Brielle." The next evening found Parker in his suit, the same one he'd worn to his interview, waiting in the lobby of Foster Tower. Mrs. Patel had been delighted to watch Lily, waving away his concerns about the late hour with assurances that she'd sleep on his couch. When the elevator doors opened and Brielle stepped out, Parker's breath caught. She wore a deep blue gown that highlighted her elegant figure, her hair swept up to reveal the graceful line of her neck. "You look stunning," he said simply. "Thank you," she replied, her eyes appreciating his appearance as well. "You clean up rather nicely yourself." The gala was held at the city's Natural History Museum, which seemed fitting given Lily's dinosaur obsession. As they entered, Parker felt the curious glances from other attendees clearly. Brielle Foster arriving with an unknown man was noteworthy. "People are staring," he murmured as she led him toward the bar. "Let them," she replied with a slight smile. "It's good for them to see me with someone who isn't a potential business connection." Throughout the evening, Brielle introduced him to various colleagues and associates, always with a simple, This is Parker Richards, offering no explanation of his role at Foster Innovations or in her life. Parker navigated the conversations with natural ease, finding common ground with strangers and showing genuine interest in their work. During a quiet moment when they'd stepped away from the crowd, Brielle touched his arm gently. "Thank you for coming tonight. I know this isn't your usual scene." "I'm enjoying myself," he assured her. "Though I keep thinking how much Lily would love seeing the dinosaur exhibits. We should bring her here sometime when it's not filled with people in formal wear." The casual inclusion of future plans together didn't escape either of them. Brielle's expression softened. "I'd like that very much." As the evening progressed, they found themselves gravitating toward a small orchestra playing classical music in one of the museum's grand halls. Several couples were dancing, and Brielle looked at Parker questioningly. "May I have this dance?" she asked. Parker hesitated only briefly before taking her hand. "Fair warning, I haven't danced in years." "Neither have I," she admitted as they moved onto the floor. "Not properly, anyway." They fell into a comfortable rhythm, his hand at her waist, hers on his shoulder, their other hands clasped together. The physical proximity brought a new awareness between them, the subtle scent of her perfume, the warmth of his hand through the fabric of her dress. "This feels nice," Brielle said softly. "Being here with you." "It does," Parker agreed, his voice equally quiet. "Though I keep waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder and ask what I'm doing dancing with the most beautiful woman in the room." She laughed lightly, the sound warming him from within. "The only person who might interrupt us is Marcus, and that would only be if there was a genuine corporate emergency." As if summoned by her words, Brielle's assistant appeared at the edge of the dance floor, his expression apologetic but urgent. She sighed, squeezing Parker's hand. "I need to see what this is about. I'll be right back." Parker watched her go, struck by the ease with which she shifted from the woman in his arms to the confident CEO addressing a business concern. He wandered toward the museum's central atrium, where a massive dinosaur skeleton dominated the space. Standing beneath it, he took a photo with his phone to show Lily later. "Quite impressive, isn't it?" came a voice beside him. Parker turned to find an older man in an expensive suit studying the dinosaur with him. "It is," Parker agreed. "My daughter would be beside herself with excitement seeing this." The man smiled. "How old is your daughter?" "4," Parker replied. "Dinosaurs are her current obsession." "A worthy fascination," the man said approvingly. "I'm James Foster, by the way." Parker's surprise must have shown on his face because James chuckled. "Yes, that Foster, Brielle's father, and you must be the mysterious Parker Richards who has the entire board buzzing with curiosity." "I'm not sure about mysterious," Parker said, extending his hand. "But yes, I'm Parker." "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir." James shook his hand firmly, assessing him with keen eyes that reminded Parker of Brielle's direct gaze. "Walk with me a moment, Mr. Richards." They moved away from the dinosaur, James leading them toward a quieter gallery displaying fossils in glass cases. "My daughter doesn't bring dates to these functions," James said without preamble. "In fact, I can't recall the last time she attended with anyone who wasn't a business associate, so you can imagine my interest when she arrived with you tonight." Parker maintained his composure, sensing this was something of a test. "Brielle and I are getting to know each other. It's still new." James nodded thoughtfully. "And what do you do, Mr. Richards?" "I work in maintenance at Foster Innovations," Parker replied honestly, seeing no reason to hide the truth. "I started about a month ago." Instead of the disapproval Parker half expected, James looked intrigued. "A maintenance worker, how refreshing." At Parker's raised eyebrow, he elaborated, "For years, I've watched ambitious men court my daughter for her position and wealth. Most didn't see Brielle at all, just the Foster name and all it represents." "They missed out then," Parker said simply. "She's remarkable, with or without the company." James studied him for a long moment before his expression warmed. "I believe you actually mean that." He glanced over Parker's shoulder and smiled. "Ah, here she comes now, looking for you." Parker turned to see Brielle approaching, concern giving way to surprise as she noticed her father. "Dad. I didn't know you were coming tonight." "Last-minute decision," James explained, kissing her cheek. "I was just getting acquainted with your friend here. Interesting choice." Brielle glanced between them, a hint of defensiveness in her posture. "Parker is exactly what you need," James interrupted gently. "Someone who sees you, not the company." He patted Parker's shoulder. "Don't let this one slip away, Brielle. He seems to have his priorities straight." With that, he nodded to them both and walked away. Brielle watched her father go, then turned to Parker with a bemused expression. "What exactly did you two talk about?" "Dinosaurs, mostly," Parker replied with a slight smile. "And you, a little bit." She shook her head, stepping closer to him. "Whatever you said, I've never seen my father approve of anyone that quickly. He's usually much more protective." "Maybe he recognizes that I'm not after the Foster fortune," Parker suggested. "Just the Foster standing right in front of me." The simple honesty in his words visibly moved her. Brielle reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "The emergency is handled. Would you like to continue our dance?" "Very much," he replied, leading her back toward the music. The following weeks brought a gradual but significant shift in their relationship. Brielle became a regular visitor at Parker's apartment, joining them for simple dinners and bedtime routines. Parker continued his rooftop singing, but now, Brielle often sat beside him rather than listening from her balcony. Their worlds, so different in many ways, began to overlap and blend. One Sunday morning, they took Lily to the park, where Parker pushed her on the swings while Brielle waited to catch her at the bottom of the slide. Watching them together, Brielle's normally composed demeanor giving way to genuine laughter as Lily insisted on higher, higher. Parker felt something settle in his chest, a sense of rightness he hadn't experienced since before Amanda's death. Later, while Lily napped on a blanket in the shade, Parker and Brielle sat nearby, talking quietly. "She's falling in love with you, you know," Parker said, nodding toward his sleeping daughter. "She asked me this morning if you were going to live with us someday." Brielle's eyes widened slightly. "What did you tell her?" "That grown-up relationships take time, and right now we're all enjoying being together." He studied her face. "Was that okay?" She nodded, reaching for his hand. "More than okay. It was honest." She hesitated, then asked, "How do you feel about it? The possibility, I mean." Parker didn't pretend to misunderstand. "I'm falling in love with you, Brielle. I think I started the night you showed up at my door in the rain." He squeezed her hand gently. "But Lily has to be my priority. Any step forward has to be right for her too." "I understand," Brielle said softly. "And I respect that more than I can say." She took a deep breath. "I should probably tell you that I've never seriously considered marriage or children before. My life has been the company, my goals always professional rather than personal, but being with you and Lily. It's changing how I see things, what I want." The admission clearly wasn't easy for her. Parker leaned forward, kissing her gently. "We'll take it one day at a time," he promised. "No pressure, no expectations, just us figuring it out together." That evening, after putting Lily to bed, Parker joined Brielle on the small balcony of his apartment. The night was warm, the city lights creating a twinkling backdrop to their conversation. "I've been thinking," Brielle said, her voice contemplative, "about making some changes at work." "What kind of changes?" Parker asked, curious about the thoughtful expression on her face. "Delegating more, working fewer 80-hour weeks." She turned to look at him directly, making space for a personal life that actually matters. Parker smiled, understanding the significance of what she was saying. "That sounds like a good change." "I think so too," she agreed. "I've been running at full speed for so long, I never stopped to consider what I might be missing." She reached for his hand. "Until I heard you singing to your daughter." As summer turned to fall, their relationship deepened. Brielle adjusted her schedule to join Parker and Lily for dinner most evenings, sometimes bringing work home rather than staying late at the office. Parker continued to excel at his position, earning respect from colleagues who quickly recognized his problem-solving abilities. The differences in their lifestyles occasionally created challenges. Brielle's wealth and public profile contrasted sharply with Parker's modest means and private nature. Yet they navigated these differences with open communication and mutual respect, finding compromises that honored both their worlds. One evening in late September, Parker received an unexpected call from Janet, his supervisor at Foster Innovations. "Parker, I've been asked to offer you a new position," she said without preamble. "Head of Facilities Management. It would mean a significant pay increase, more responsibility, and a team reporting to you." Parker was stunned. That's a big jump from maintenance worker." "It is," Janet agreed, "but you've proven yourself exceptionally capable. Your background in multiple maintenance fields gives you a perspective we need, and your leadership qualities are evident in how you've mentored the newer staff members." The opportunity was unexpected but exciting. After discussing the details with Janet, Parker called Brielle, wanting to share the news with her first. "That's wonderful," she exclaimed when he told her. "Janet approached me about creating the position last week, but I recused myself from the selection process for obvious reasons." "I'm thrilled they chose you on merit alone." "You knew about this?" Parker asked, surprised. "I knew about the position, not that they were considering you specifically," she clarified. "I've been careful to keep our relationship separate from work decisions." "Your promotion is entirely based on your abilities, Parker." That night, as they celebrated with a special dinner after Lily was asleep, Parker found himself reflecting on how much had changed in just a few months. From struggling to make ends meet to heading a department, from lonely evenings on the roof to sharing his life with a woman who understood both his strengths and vulnerabilities. "What are you thinking about?" Brielle asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "How different my life is now compared to where I was when you first heard me singing," he admitted. "Sometimes it feels almost unreal." Brielle reached across the table, taking his hand. "Does it feel too fast? Too much change at once?" Parker considered her question seriously. "No," he said finally. "The changes in my career, yes, those have been rapid, but that feels like the most natural progression imaginable." He squeezed her hand. "Like finding a harmony I didn't know was missing." The musical metaphor made her smile. "I like that, a harmony." Her expression grew more serious. "I want you to know something, Parker. If you accept this promotion, which I hope you do, it won't change how I feel about you. I fell in love with the man who sings lullabies to his daughter, not with a position or title." The words hung between them the first time either had explicitly said love, meaningful and transformative. Parker stood, pulling her gently to her feet and into his arms. "I love you too," he said softly against her hair. "Title or no title, CEO or not, I love who you are when you're sitting on my couch helping Lily with her dinosaur puzzles." They held each other in the small kitchen, the moment simple but profound. When they finally separated, Brielle's eyes were bright with emotion. "Move in with us," Parker said suddenly. The words surprised him almost as much as they seemed to surprise her. "I know it's not what you're used to. This apartment is probably the size of your bathroom, but we could look for a new place together, something that works for all of us." Brielle's expression softened. "Parker, I don't care about the size of the apartment. I care about being with you and Lily." She hesitated. "But are you sure it's not too soon? For Lily especially?" "She adores you," Parker assured her. "Just this morning, she asked if you could help with her Halloween costume this year. She's already thinking of you as part of our family." The word family resonated between them, weighty with implication and possibility. Brielle took a deep breath, her decision evident in her eyes before she spoke. "Yes," she said simply. "Let's find a place together, a home for the three of us." The search for a new home became a family project over the next few weeks. Brielle insisted that Lily be included in the process, asking for her opinion on the houses and apartments they visited. Parker watched with growing love as Brielle carefully considered his daughter's childish requirements: a good climbing tree, a bathtub, Big enough for all my toys, windows that caught the morning sun. They eventually found a charming house in a neighborhood halfway between Parker's apartment and Foster Tower, not ostentatious but comfortable, with a fenced yard, 3 bedrooms, and an attic space that could become Parker's music room. The previous owners had painted the smallest bedroom a soft purple, which Lily immediately declared perfect for her dinosaur kingdom. Moving day arrived on a crisp October Saturday. Brielle had hired professional movers for the heavy lifting, but insisted on packing her personal items herself, a process that revealed how few truly meaningful possessions she owned, despite her wealth. Parker and Lily, meanwhile, packed their lives into a surprisingly small number of boxes, their most valuable treasures being photographs and handmade items rather than expensive goods. As they unpacked in their new home, merging their lives became a physical reality. Brielle's sleek modern furniture blended unexpectedly well with Parker's more rustic pieces. Lily's toys found homes in colorful bins in both her room and the living area. In the master bedroom, Brielle's designer clothes hung beside Parker's more modest wardrobe, a visual representation of their different worlds coming together. That night, after the movers had gone and Lily had finally fallen asleep in her new room, after Parker had checked 3 times for monsters under the bed and in the closet, they collapsed onto the couch in their partially unpacked living room. "We did it," Parker said, pulling Brielle against his side. "We officially live together." "We do," she agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. "How does it feel?" "Right," he said simply. "Like this is exactly where we're all supposed to be." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "How about you?" "Any regrets about trading your penthouse for domestic chaos?" Brielle laughed softly. "None whatsoever, though I suspect Marcus is still in shock that I'm actually taking weekends off now." "Your father seemed pleased when we told him," Parker noted. "He was," Brielle confirmed. "I think he's been waiting years for me to find a balance between work and personal happiness." She shifted to look at him more directly. "Speaking of which, I've been thinking about our future." Parker raised an eyebrow, curious about her serious tone. "What specifically?" "Well," she began carefully, "I know we haven't talked much about this, but how would you feel about having more children someday? Not immediately," she added quickly, "but eventually." The question caught him by surprise, not because it hadn't crossed his mind, but because Brielle had been the one to bring it up. "I'd love that," he said honestly. "Lily has been asking for a sibling since she was 3. I just wasn't sure if that was something you wanted." "I never thought I did," Brielle admitted. "Children weren't part of my life plan, but being with Lily, seeing you as a father, it's made me realize what I've been missing, what I want now." She took a deep breath. "If we're going to consider that future, though, there's something else we should discuss." Parker waited, giving her space to continue at her own pace. "Marriage," she said finally. "Not because it's expected or traditional, but because I want to build a life with you and Lily that has a solid foundation. I want us to be a family in every sense." Parker felt his heart swell with emotion. It wasn't a proposal exactly, more an opening of a conversation about their shared future. He took her hands in his. "I want that too," he said softly. "To be your husband, to give Lily the stable family she deserves, to maybe welcome another child into our lives someday." He smiled, a thought occurring to him. "Though I hope any proposal involves me actually asking properly, with a ring and everything." Brielle laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing. "Absolutely. I'm just opening negotiations, as any good CEO would." "Duly noted," Parker replied, pulling her close for a kiss that sealed their understanding. The following months brought a rhythm to their shared life morning routines with Lily before school, balancing their respective work responsibilities, evenings spent together as a family. Parker's music room in the attic became a retreat where he composed new songs, sometimes with Brielle listening quietly from the corner, sometimes with Lily providing enthusiastic percussion on a small drum set that had been her Christmas gift. Though they had discussed marriage, neither rushed toward a formal engagement. They were secure in their commitment, focused on building their life together and helping Lily adjust to the significant changes in her world. The little girl thrived with Brielle's presence, developing a special relationship that honored Amanda's memory while creating its own unique bond. Spring arrived with renewed energy and growth. Parker's department at Foster Innovations was flourishing under his leadership, implementing innovative sustainability practices that had caught the attention of industry publications. Brielle had successfully restructured her executive team to allow herself more personal time without sacrificing the company's momentum. Their professional lives, once so disparate, had found complementary rhythms. On a warm evening in April, Parker suggested they have dinner on the rooftop garden they'd created at their new home. He had spent the day preparing, setting up a small table with candles and flowers, connecting speakers for soft music. Brielle arrived home from work to find Lily staying with Mrs. Patel for the evening and Parker waiting with a glass of wine. "What's the occasion?" Brielle asked, accepting the wine and the kiss he offered. "Does there need to be one?" he countered with a smile. "Maybe I just wanted an evening alone with the woman I love." The rooftop dinner was perfect, simple, but delicious food Parker had prepared himself, wine from a vineyard they had visited together, conversation that flowed effortlessly between them. As they finished dessert, Parker reached for Brielle's hand. "Almost a year ago, you heard me singing on a rooftop," he said softly. "I had no idea then that my lullabies would lead me to you, to this life we've built together." Brielle's eyes softened with memory and emotion. "Best eavesdropping I ever did." Parker smiled, then stood, pulling her gently to her feet. "Dance with me." The music shifted to a familiar melody, the song he'd been singing the night of the storm when she had first reached out to him. They moved together under the stars, comfortable in their closeness, the city lights surrounding them just as they had on that first night. When the song ended, Parker didn't release her. Instead, he took a step back, still holding her hands, and dropped to one knee. "Brielle Foster," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion filling his chest. "You came into my life unexpectedly, listened when I thought no one could hear me, and showed me that love doesn't have to be a memory, it can be a present joy and a future promise." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small box. "Will you marry me? Will you continue building this family with me and Lily?" Inside the box was a ring not extravagant or showy, but a perfect sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, reminiscent of the night sky above them. Tears filled Brielle's eyes as she looked from the ring to Parker's face. "Yes," she whispered, then more strongly. "Yes, with all my heart, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, drawing her into a kiss that sealed their commitment. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Brielle touched the ring with wonder. "It's beautiful," she said. "Perfect." "I had help picking it out," Parker admitted with a smile. "Lily has very specific opinions about jewelry appropriate for her future stepmother." Brielle laughed, the sound joyful and uninhibited. "Of course she does. Is she waiting to hear the news?" Impatiently, I'm sure. Mrs. Patel probably has her hands full keeping her distracted. They decided to share their news immediately, heading to Mrs. Patel's apartment, where Lily was indeed waiting with barely contained excitement. When they showed her the ring, she launched herself at them both, creating a family embrace that felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Does this mean you'll be my real mom now?" Lily asked Brielle, her eyes serious despite her excitement. Brielle knelt down to Lily's level, choosing her words carefully. "I'll be your stepmom, which is very real and very special, but you already have a mom who loved you very much, and I would never want to replace her. I hope I can be another mom in your life, someone who loves you and takes care of you alongside your dad." Lily considered this, then nodded with the wisdom children sometimes display in moments of importance. "I think my first mom would like that. She would want me to have someone to do mom things with." Parker felt his throat tighten with emotion as he watched the two most important people in his life find their way together. Brielle and Lily sealed their understanding with a hug, and then Lily looked up at her father. "Can we have ice cream to celebrate?" she asked, pragmatic as always. Parker laughed, the emotional moment breaking into simple family joy. "Absolutely, Princess. Ice cream is definitely called for." Their wedding took place 3 months later, a simple ceremony in the garden of their home, with Lily as flower girl and ring bearer combined. James Foster walked his daughter down the makeshift aisle, looking happier than Brielle could remember seeing him in years. Parker's parents, who had flown in from Arizona, beamed with pride as their son spoke vows that incorporated lyrics from his rooftop songs. The reception was an unusual mix of corporate executives and Parker's friends from his various jobs, hardware store colleagues dancing with board members, Mrs. Patel exchanging recipes with Brielle's assistant Marcus. The blend of worlds felt right, a reflection of the bridge they had built between their different lives. As evening fell, Parker surprised Brielle by leading her to a small stage set up in the corner of the garden. He picked up a guitar, adjusting the microphone nervously. "Most of you know that Brielle and I met because she heard me singing," he began, looking out at their gathered friends and family. "What you might not know is that I've been writing a song for us for months now. I thought our wedding day was the perfect time to share it." The song he played was beautiful in its simplicity, a love story told in melody and lyrics, chronicling their journey from rooftop lullabies to family breakfasts, from separate worlds to shared dreams. By the final chorus, Brielle was wiping away tears, and Lily had climbed onto her lap, both of them watching Parker with identical expressions of love. When he finished, the applause was enthusiastic, but secondary to the way Brielle looked at him as if she was still the woman on the balcony, hearing him for the first time, discovering something unexpected and precious in the night air. Later, after the guests had gone and Lily had finally been convinced to go to bed, the excitement of the day making sleep seem unnecessary in her young mind, Parker and Brielle stood in their garden, swaying gently to music only they could hear. "Mrs. Richards," Parker murmured against her hair. "How does it feel?" Brielle smiled against his shoulder. "Wonderful. Though legally it's Foster Richards, you know. Details," he laughed softly. "The important part is that we're family now officially and completely." "We've been family for a while," she pointed out, lifting her head to meet his gaze. "Today just let everyone else know what we already felt." Parker nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Their journey from separate lives to shared future had been gradual, and yet somehow inevitable from the moment she first heard his voice carrying across the city night. "I have something to tell you," Brielle said after a moment, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "I was going to wait, but tonight feels right." Parker raised an eyebrow, curious about her tone. "What is it?" She took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach, still flat beneath the elegant lines of her wedding dress. "We might need to convert the guest room sooner than we planned." "I'm pregnant." Parker froze, his eyes widening as her words registered. We're going to have a baby," she confirmed, watching his face anxiously. "I know we talked about waiting a year, but apparently life had other plans." For a moment, Parker couldn't speak, overwhelmed by emotion. Then he lifted her off her feet in a careful embrace, spinning them both in a circle of pure joy. "This is incredible," he whispered when he set her down, his hands cupping her face tenderly. "Are you happy about it? I know it's sooner than we discussed." "I'm terrified and thrilled and completely in love with the idea," Brielle admitted. "Just like I am with you and this life we're building." Parker kissed her then, pouring all his love and excitement into the connection between them. When they separated, both slightly breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "Lily is going to be ecstatic," he said. "She's been asking for a sibling since forever." "I know," Brielle laughed softly. She mentioned it again just yesterday, very casually, as if she was simply reminding me of an item on a to-do list. They stood together in the quiet garden, newly married and already expanding their family, the future stretching before them with promise and possibility. Tomorrow would bring the practicalities, telling Lily about the baby, Parker's parents who were staying another few days, Brielle's father who would undoubtedly be overjoyed at the prospect of another grandchild. But tonight was theirs alone, a moment of perfect unity and anticipation. "I should warn you," Parker said after a comfortable silence. "I sing to babies, a lot. It's kind of my thing." Brielle smiled, remembering the voice that had drawn her to her balcony night after night. "I'm counting on it, Mr. Richards. In fact, I fell in love with you because of it." Under the stars, in the garden of the home they had created together, Parker began to sing softly, not a lullaby this time, but a love song for his wife, for their growing family, and for the unexpected harmony they had found together.